So get up. Top of the morning to ya.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. 33 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to the Sunrise Show. Craig Frontikin, and want to welcome onto the program Dr. Mark Christian. He's the founder and executive director of the Global Faith Institute in Nebraska, and he's gracious enough to come on here on the program. Mark, great to have you on this morning. What a weekend, huh?
Yeah, it was very interesting. I'm actually in Oklahoma right now. I was seeing college campuses and a couple of churches, and it was a very interesting week for me personally, and also on the national scene when you see finally Hillary Clinton as a surprise. I'm kidding about that
Yeah.
She's running for president.
Well, and what did you think of that video rather than a live announcement?
She wants to put herself, with the best picture she can to take off some years off her, her appearance and to make a professional video as everybody's laughing and get some, energy going on other than just she speaking to the camera.
Well,
so she has a very good PR campaign. She has all the money in the world to run the most effective campaign can be done for president, and the PR campaign, they started even before she starts running and before the announcement by exposing everything
well,
that
with her
can
book,
be
yeah.
hurting her campaign later on, and to check for the market and how people are going to feel about it and so forth. So she's going to run a campaign that we have never seen in American, election history.
Exactly, over $2 billion, and you can imagine, I mean, I talked about this last segment, is the steamroller effect that Hillary and her team are going to have. They have been working feverishly behind the scenes, working on her book tour, getting her teams ready to go. I mean, the massive amounts of millions of dollars, and of course it's going to be billions at this point, but nothing is too good for, Hillary and what she needs because she wants a vote.
I think she's undefeated, Greg. I think she's... nobody's going to be able to defeat Hillary the way everything is going on this way. God is in control, and He can do miracles every day. But the way everything going on, many people think that she's not electable and she's not going to be able to win. And those are guys who are saying that Obama is not a smart man, and both of them are wrong.
Oh, absolutely. No, they've worked it out. They've worked the whole thing out, and you can see it. It's almost like a well-written multi-page score of an orchestra that is perfectly laid out, and it's the American political system at its best, if you want to call it. I hate to say it that way.
Aren't you excited for Bill, being at the White House finally again, but at this time without an official job and having all the time on his hand and doing whatever he can do at the White House? That'd be great. I think he's going to be doing some landscaping and stuff like that. Don't you think?
Exactly. Well, here's the thing that's so amazing is you have the Clinton Foundation and the millions and millions of dollars that's hooked up with that, and that's in her hip pocket whenever she wants to kind of play around with that. And Bill is in charge of that, and you've got just a exit stage left. You can just it's massive. And ladies and gentlemen, Americans all around, need to just pay attention to this. So Mark, what's happening with the Global Faith Institute recently, and tie in this Muslim Student Association, because this is huge as students, families are looking to what college their kids are going to be going to. This is huge.
I'm glad you asked that question because I'm actually right now in Oklahoma, and last night I have multiple speaking engagements over here, and last night I was speaking at the university campus in Oklahoma, and it was amazing. The attendance over there at more than 500 people in attendance, and the leaders of the Muslim Student Association and the leaders of CARE were there, and it is just amazing when you hear and you listen from people on the ground in college campuses, and we had a conversation a long time after that. And when I presented what MSA is all about and care about, because I didn't shy away from it, no, I just share it the way it is. And they come after me and say, are you saying that we are Muslim Brotherhood and so forth? And other people coming to me and say, we know those are our friends, from MSA. They cannot be Muslim Brotherhood. They cannot have an agenda. And I told them, this is the way they work. This is the way they function. They have certain rules that they have to follow. They have an agenda that they have, born in America or born in Saudi Arabia or born in Egypt or born in anywhere else. When they become the leaders of MSA, and this is their goals, and I get the manual of the Muslim Student Association in front of them and take the statements, and show them what the manual is all about. So back to your question. I think God is using me in mighty ways, and I think everybody needs to be educated, and then, we need to multiply, and we try to share the information with everybody that we know. Muslim Student Association is an organization that is funded and started and works tirelessly till today by the Muslim Brotherhood supporters and Muslim Brotherhood organization. Their goal is to change the mindset of the next generation of America, change the mindset of high school kids, and mostly the college kids. And this is a very dangerous organization to let function on our college campuses, even though they have the right as, an open society and so forth. But we have to be very careful when we are approaching them and let them know what they are doing in America.
It's interesting with kids because they're so impressionable, and your website, globalfaithinstitute.org, it talks about the Muslim Student Association organization targets high school and college kids in an effort to brainwash coming generations and influence the future of this country. I mean, they make it sound like the Muslim Student Association, and like you said, they're very well funded, very deep pockets. They have all the money they possibly could want, and what they do is they come in and they have meetings and they discuss.
Fun parties. They put fun parties. They always have two things, and I was just even joking about it yesterday. Is they put an ice cream party, a pizza party, a henna party, stuff like that. This is the way of doing it. And you're not gonna. They say, I met those people from MSA. There's no way that they're Muslim Brotherhood, and they say, and I said, this is the way they function. They're not gonna tell you I'm a bad guy. They're not gonna tell you that I'm an Islamist. They're gonna come in as a normal student who is just very devout to his religion as a Muslim, and also very devout to the agenda of the Muslim Brotherhood and the Islamists, and this is what they do. And they do not work on American kids only. They work on the foreign students coming from Saudi Arabia. They're already Muslims.
Exactly. Well, here's the thing.
On those. So they can recruit them and make them Islamists. Either they stay in America or leave. They want to change the mindset of every person on campus to be supporter of
Hold that thought, Mark. We're going to go to break right now.
Shout, shout, I'm talking to you, so come on. Shout.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. 45 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to the Sunrise Show. Craig Froelich in as your host, and continuing with Dr. Mark Christian. He's the executive director for the Global Faith Institute. GlobalFaithInstitute.org is his organization, and grabbing hold as he's exploring and identifying these threats to Americans. And Mark, we were just talking about the MSA, the Muslim Student Association, well-funded, deep pockets, more money than they could possibly shake a stick at, and with all the other groups, CARE and that kind of thing. And then you it seems like we're just being attacked on all sides. And I was just mentioning on the break related to President Obama and Cuba, why all of a sudden the push with Cuba? And you said, well, he wants to take ground from Putin. And I immediately made the connection. And ladies and gentlemen, Cuba, what is it, 75, 80 miles south of our border. And last year, there was a Russian spy ship docked at the Cuban docks. And then you think, here's President Obama down visiting with Raul Castro. Mark?
Which is 100% good to defeat the Russians and not let them have any spy ships on the borders of America, and take away Cuba from the Russians and make them allies with Americans instead of allies with the Russians. And I think some people remember, the debacle that happened back in the day with Kennedy and so forth. But the biggest problem that we are facing is that President Obama is doing this not because he is doing something good for America itself. He's doing it so he can help the Islamists. If anybody knows what's going on the scene, Obama has a big agenda to reestablish the Islamic State and to help the Muslim Brotherhood in their agenda in the Middle East. And who is opposing that? It is Putin that is opposing that, and the Iranians. And this is why he's engaged in negotiation with Iran on a very bad deal going on with Iran on the nuclear weapon. And also he's trying to defeat Putin in every way he can, in every front. And the problem is when working with Cuba without putting any rules, and he's doing it just to appease and to gain Cuba on our side and let them not work with Putin anymore. First of all, that's naive because the alliance between Cuba and Russians is not going to go overnight. And even if he promised them everything he wants with money and tourism and all that kind of stuff, it's not gonna help them in any way. Plus, it is not with the American value that we can adopt a country that has no respect for human rights whatsoever. So, President Obama is going hard on his agenda to support the Islamists, and he is doing whatever he takes in the whole world and appeasing to everybody, paying everybody so they can let him do what he wants to do, and this is wrong.
It's Mark. Amazing that you mentioned that. And with President, Vladimir Putin, they don't want Muslim. What do you call it? Interference.
System, union, Muslim Brotherhood. Russia is completely against the Muslim Brotherhood. Obama is for the Muslim Brotherhood. This is as easy, as simple as you can put it together.
That's exactly right. So then you go. And then you brought the second piece of your comment, which is just fascinating, that Cuba, they don't care about human rights. Look what's going on down there, but yet we waltz in and pretend like everything's okay on the surface. When do you think, we're talking about, freedom and equal rights and racism and all those type of things and equal pay and everything else, and then you look at Cuba, none of that is going on.
Nothing, and nothing will change. This is a country that does not respect human rights whatsoever. Nothing changed in the last 50-something years, and they are aligned with the Russians because, we have a dictator in place that is governing the country. And what Obama is trying to do is going to promise them all kinds of, hope that they're going to get lots of money and change in the country and so forth, so they can be an ally of America. And that doesn't happen. You can pay the criminal as much as you want to, so you can get in his side, but whenever he get a chance to rob you or to kill you, he would do, because a criminal will continue being a criminal.
And that's exactly right. Just like the story of a scorpion and the frog crossing the stream. It's amazing. That's what happens. Mark, it's interesting. We were just talking about Guantanamo Bay and the lease arrangement between the U.S. and Cuba, and they made this lease years ago before the Bay of Pigs, before all of that. And it's about $1,000 a month lease, and they both have to agree to dissolve the lease. And of course, the U.S. does not agree to dissolve the lease, and Cuba wants their land back, but it's a naval station down there in Guantanamo Bay, very strategically placed. And it's so interesting. I saw a report on it, and the monthly payments that the U.S. is making to Cuba I think it's $1,000 check or whatever it is. Cuba is not cashing the check. They have never cashed the check, and they want their land back. I'm thinking that President Obama is going to close Guantanamo Bay, get rid of all the detainees, and give the base back to Cuba. What are your thoughts?
I think so. He said that. It's not a speculation. He wants to close it down, but the biggest problem is it's good to close it down and give it back, but the problem is you have a whole bunch of terrorists that end up in that jail for a reason, because they are terrorists, because they have alliance with terrorism. And when they go out of jail, they are not going to go out. They put some program that they're going to rehab terrorists. How can you rehab terrorists? Do you think they're going to go out of jail and go back and work at McDonald's? They're not going to do that. They're going to go and become terrorists the way that they are. They are jihadi. Their ideology is different from even the regular criminals that they need to assimilate into the communities. They don't do that. They want to be martyrs. They want to fight for a cause, and they have an agenda. And this
Exactly.
is a huge, big problem. When you think about people differently and try to make a judgment based on a whole bunch of not truthful, facts, then you are putting yourself in trouble.
Mark, we have about 2 minutes. I want to. It's a big question, but the difference between the jihadi, the Islamist extremists, and the Muslims that are around the United States. Americans wonder if the extremists are over here, but what's the difference between the jihadi, and you've told me this before, the jihadi and the Muslim?
Muslims are, from old backgrounds and different, ideology and so forth. And there is lots of peaceful Muslims out there that has nothing to do with jihad and terrorism and so forth. But the biggest problem is, Islam is one Islam. So whether you have peaceful Muslims or not is not going to help,
Right.
fighting this fight. What is the difference between jihadi? A jihadi is a person that he believes in Islam so much to the level that he believes in every aspect of Islam and who wants to follow Muhammad to the teeth. And the more he becomes devout to Islam, the more he wants to follow the Prophet. Like, any Christian who become a Christian and he wants to be like Jesus, and every day he grows up into that. I'm making just a comparison so we can understand. The more that you become devout to things that you want to follow. The biggest problem within Islam is the more that you want to be like Muhammad, the more that you get, a little bit aggressive and start believing in jihad and start committing jihad and so forth. And this is a good question that I asked yesterday a group of Muslims, and I said, you say that you are peaceful Muslims, and they said yes, and I said, why are you not doing any jihad? And they couldn't answer that. Because
Wow.
in Islam, the teachings of Islam says that you have to commit jihad at least once in your lifetime. You have to go and fight for the cause of Islam once in your lifetime. So if you ask peaceful Muslims why you are not doing jihad, and they don't have an answer for that. They just decided not to do. So can we base our security and safety on Muslims who just decided not to do and waiting for them one time they decided to do it? That's the biggest problem, right?
That's exactly the problem. And, we're out of time, but it's always great to talk to you. And it's so fascinating, Mark. And I'm so glad that you're holding the line on what great values Americans have and Christianity, because without America, where would the world be? And it's...
I really hope that people also try to educate themselves and do something about the current events that we live in, because it is for us to defend our country, our church, and our next generation and our kids and grandkids.
Exactly. Mark, thank you so much for your time this morning. We'll be talking to you real soon. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Mark Christian, the founder of the Global Faith Institute. Get to his website, globalfaithinstitute.org. Thanks so much. Back after this break.